Delia, Nell, very good to see you again. How are you?
Good, thanks, Tate.
Uh,
Thank you.
so you're in New Zealand. You've been successful. You've had the job offer. How did the process go? How are you? Which city are you in?
I'm actually in Auckland, and I'm working for a financial institution in Auckland. So I've been here for 5 weeks already.
Okay, great. So you're well past the first impression stage. Do you remember what the first impressions were of the workplace, of Auckland as a city where you're living, finding rentals? How many of those things have you gone through, and what are the first impressions that a South African will have?
So I was fortunate when I came out looking for a job that I did stay in Auckland for about 2 weeks. So I was quite used to in terms of the city. I think what strikes me the most about living in New Zealand is how safe it is here. How you can walk on the streets. There's no concerns in terms of your own safety. People are very friendly. I found that both in the workplace as well as just engaging socially with friends and that here. So it's actually been a very pleasant experience. I think it's been quite a change in terms of my life. So I think from that perspective, the transition's gone better than I hoped. But there has been moments, you go through stages up and down. I think my family isn't here as yet, and I think that's made it also a little bit more difficult in terms of the transition.
Okay, thank you. So the up part is the pleasant changes of society, and the down part is the missing of the family.
That's correct, yes.
The main part, okay. So how did you, could we walk through a little bit about how you actually found the job? So the process, how did it work from your perspective?
So I think, Tate, the one thing that you actually did teach me in terms of preparation is to be prepared from an interview perspective. I'd worked for another financial institution in South Africa for about 12 years. So I wasn't used to the whole interviewing process. So for me, and it's the smaller things, I think the stuff that you're not conscious of in terms of preparing yourself, making sure that when you go in there, you can put your best foot forward, that you can speak with confidence. And I think also in terms of prepping, it's just being mindful in terms of how you're going to present yourself, the questions you're going to be asked, and just doing that prep work. I think that's what actually made it a bit smoother in terms of the process. So I actually think the preparation is the key in terms of actually being able to walk in and be confident.
Okay, well, you had a lot to work with, being head of audit from a large structure, globally recognized subsidiary of Barclays Bank, and having a leadership role within the South African environment. We did go through your rich background, and then we put it onto a video CV, and then that video CV, did you send it out?
I did. So when I was in South Africa before I came to Auckland, because I think that's also an important tip for anybody who's looking to get employment, is you need to make sure that you are available, that you are able to come out here and meet face to face with recruiters and decision makers. I think that's key. But as a way to get in terms of getting that initial door opened, I did send out that clip, and I did get a few views on it in terms of actual recruiters and that. So it is a good way, because I think it's very difficult when you applying for a position, and the market in New Zealand is quite small in terms of job opportunities. So you've got to make sure that when there is an opportunity does arise, that you are able to put your best foot forward in that.
Right, yes. Take aim carefully and make sure each step counts, especially in the beginning, because once you hook them in, you've got the profile. Once you hook them into understanding who you are, and I say this so many to top-tier South Africans that are coming over, which is the majority of the people I work with, in some sense. I mean, in a sense, we're all top-tier because we're all specialists in what we do. So if employers know what we do, that's half the battle.
Yes, and I think you've also got to be able to have a good impression. That first impression counts. So you've got to make sure that you're well prepared and that you are able to be authentic, but also be able to put be able to market yourself and be able to position yourself in terms of the role.
How many interviews did you have, Delia, before you found this job offer happen?
So I was quite fortunate, Tate, when I came out to Auckland. I interviewed with two companies. The company that I'm working at the moment, I had to do 3 interviews, as well as 2 assessments, 2 written assessments for that role. And in the second company, I was on to doing a second interview with them, but then I was offered the position at the current company I'm at.
Okay, well done. All right. So the first interview was the one that resulted in your job offer.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so the first interview is one that you had prepared for in advance by us going through your history. You prepared for the recording, then we recorded, then you had to send it out. So you had a number of sessions before you actually walked into that first interview.
Yes, and like I say, I think sometimes you get in a bit of a comfort zone, particularly if you've been working for a corporate for many years, where you're well known in terms of your branding. You don't necessarily need to market yourself, and I think that's what the preparation did. It allowed me to be able to, identify my strengths and be able to portray those across in terms of the interview, because it's something you always forget, and it was actually very good. I think you could bring that out, Tate. And you being an independent person, you were able then also to give me good advice in terms of, my career and what I've done and what I should actually be saying in terms of the market and, in terms of the role.
Yes, well, I'm independent, but I'm dedicated to making sure you get there. So recruiters aren't always in that position, and employers certainly aren't in that position. But I have the privilege of working with people and honestly pulling for them, such as you. Delia, let's switch gears a little bit. Differences at work. How do you notice the difference of environment where you're at now and the difference of environment where you've come from?
So I mentioned the safety aspect previously, but I think in terms of the corporate world, I find I'm very much at home because it's very similar to South Africa. I think in terms of the people, I've mentioned how welcoming they've been. In terms of a lot of the practices that they do, because I'm coming from a global company, and I'm now also working at a global company. There's a lot of similarities in terms of the processes. So I've actually been able to settle in and adjust quite quickly because of that. So I've been fortunate that it hasn't been a total change in environment, that I am able to leverage off my skill set and be able to actually, transition quite nicely.
So global corporate is global corporate. That's what it comes down to. Anywhere.
Yes, because I think a lot of the practices, a lot of the culture within the environment is very similar. So, that's actually been good because it's made it a whole lot easier in terms of being able to settle in.
I know some people will be interested to know about the differences in management, both above and below, and maybe by the side. How do you feel a difference in management styles there versus here?
No, not necessarily, Tate. I think a lot of management style is dependent on, it's very much people driven. So it's the person. I think if you find an environment that you are able, in terms of your own line manager, be able to work with well, I think that's actually something that is very person specific. So I've actually, in terms of the management, I think I've only been there 5 weeks, but I'm actually enjoying what I'm doing and settling in well.
Okay, great. Other differences, the work lifestyle balance. Have you felt any of that yet? Has there been a switch in that sort of mentality? In other words, the culture where you're at here in New Zealand has a reputation for the work-life balance. And in South Africa, what most people are here and tell me is that it's very much driven for end results and maximizing, I don't know, I guess the value that they can get from the employees. Would you say that's fair?
I think that is fair. I think in terms of flexibility, I think that's something that is promoted. I think in terms of work-life balance, I'm probably at the best stage of my life in terms of having that. The hours that I used to work, I'm not putting in those hours in terms of what I did in my previous role. I think there is a appreciation of family and being able to, spend time with your family. So that's actually been a very pleasant experience in terms of transitioning.
So that's one difference, even though they're both corporate structures. Being in New Zealand, it is a difference with this work-life balance thing. It's not a myth. It's an actual thing that goes right to the top, in your opinion.
Yes.
Right.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other differences that come to mind that are here that aren't there, just in general, within the corporate sphere?
So I'm actually trying to, in terms of my role, I think New Zealand is very much about sustainability, about citizenship. So I see there's a lot of promotion in terms of actually caring about elderly people. I think there is a lot of trust in terms of the environment, and I think that's also a very positive in terms of the environment and being able to work where you've got that culture in terms of being able to people can speak freely. There's no fear of reprisal, or that, and it's actually been, I think, from a work perspective, but also socially. If you think in terms of the environment itself, I often listen to the TV and that, and people are not afraid to speak up. There's actually that culture, so that's been actually very good.
Okay, well, that's interesting. I wonder if that comes from the school. It seems to be permeated through the culture. So that which is permeated through the culture permeates through into the corporate culture as well in both places.
Yes, agreed.
Okay, let's change gears once again, Delia, if you don't mind. Just anything on lighter topics, other comparisons. Driving, sometimes people mention that. Maybe looking for homes. I know it's pretty difficult in Auckland. What do you do off of the work life so far? I know it hasn't been that long, but there's how many beaches? I'm at several dozens of beaches there. Anything you want to throw in with this list of questions?
So Tate, I think it's been, and I actually can't wait for my family to get here so they can experience it. I think in terms of scenery, in terms of the beaches, and in terms of way of life, it's an amazing country. I think it's a beautiful country. I'm fortunate I get to go on a ferry every day, so I don't sit in congestion in terms of traffic. I think that's a major difference. And it's half an hour and I'm at the office. I'm doing a lot more exercising, which is actually good, I think, from a well-being perspective. And that's also something I think that's promoted here in New Zealand, is your well-being. So it's actually been an amazing experience. So I really can't wait for my family to get here.
Did you make the right decision to come to New Zealand?
Oh, definitely. It's the right decision. Every day, I know, I wake up and I know that it's the right decision for my family, and it's a long-term decision. So it's been an amazing experience.
Was the challenge of getting to where you are more difficult than you expected or easier than you expected?
I think it has been difficult. I think I underestimated how much I've missed my family. I think that's the one aspect. I think had they come out sooner, and there were various reasons why they couldn't come out, but they are going to be joining me in 3 weeks' time. So, I'm looking forward to that. I think that's probably been the most difficult for me. But I think in terms of transition, I say every day, going into the office, I'm settling in. Every day gets easier because you actually learn in terms of your way around, etc. And I'm building, my routine is now here, so I'm shifting in terms of my mindset to say, this is where I want to be. And yeah, so it's been good.
Delia, there might be other top tier people in other structures, whether they're banking or other industries. What advice would you have for them who are considering coming, but maybe they're hesitating for some reason or another? What would you say to them?
So it's actually, for me, it was something, I'm a very risk-averse person. So I don't, I've been in the same corporate for 12 years working there, and I was quite settled. And a lot of people were quite surprised when I did do it. and I did make the decision. And I think it's, don't overthink it. I think once you come out here and you see how beautiful it is, you see how safe it is, and all the benefits and all the reasons why you're wanting to move are still there. And I think, but once you experience the country and that, all the doubts and that actually disappear. I think the worst part is the couple of weeks when you're moving, when you're having to get your container and find a place to stay, etc. But once you've done all that, you're here. So I wouldn't overthink it. I would just come and experience, come visit, go for job interviews. And if it's meant to be, and this is what I say to everybody, it happened for me so quickly. And I think the reason it happened for me so quickly is it was the right thing for me. It was meant to be.
Delia Nell, thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure to work with you. Let's keep in touch. Any time you need something, let me know. And I value the journey with you. I learned a lot, and thank you for your time and for the promotion of my abilities to help you in my small role to bring out such a great profile.
Thanks, Tate, and thank you for all your assistance. I couldn't have done this without you, and the value and you've given me in terms of the guidance, etc. You made it a whole lot easier for me. So thank you very much.